Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to the PHLY Flyers Show presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me from beautiful Tampa, Florida, in what appears to be a five-star resort is First Class O'Connor, Mr. Charles O'Connor, Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer. What's up today, Chuck?
William, I am ready to talk Flyers hockey after what was not a fun game last night by any means. Seemed like you didn't hate it as much as I did.
The pace was a watchable game. Honestly, if they're going to lose all the time, as long as the games are like pretty fun back and forth, good pace, Owen Tippett, shelfing a shot, that kind of stuff, I'm cool. I'm cool with that. Absolutely, Charlie. But how's the trip so far?
It's going.
It's going. All right. So the theme of today's show, as I told you before we got started, my question is this: who they are. The Flyers are 4-8-1 on the season. That's 9 points, the fewest in the league, tied with Nashville. And they have those 9 points in one more game. So by points percentage, the Philadelphia Flyers are in dead last place. And we can take a look at the standings right now for proof. It's true. This is a last place team as you're looking at it, which means at this very moment on November 6th, 2024, the Philadelphia Flyers have the best draft odds. Yes, the best odds at the #1 pick. You look at that right there. And honestly, it works almost to perfection with the way, if this is the way the standings end, absolutely perfect with the top 10 protected Colorado pick. Well, guess what? They're at 11th. And the top 12 protected Edmonton pick, guess what? They're at 14th. It's absolutely perfect. We should end the season today. But Charlie, that's my first question. And I'm going to go back to last season and really dive into what this team has done since January 20th. But in your opinion, is this who they are, a bottom team?
I don't think they are the worst team in hockey. I think just as we said that last year, they probably weren't as good as they finished. So far this year, I don't think they're as bad, true talent-wise, as their current spot as the worst team in hockey. There are quite a few teams that I believe have lower talent levels overall and more dramatic holes in their roster than the Flyers do. So do I think they are this bad? No, I don't. And I'll get into one thing that I think will decide whether they continue to be this bad. But I don't think they are this terrible. I think they know they are not this terrible. That was more or less John Tortorella's mantra last week when we asked him. We asked him about, this is when they were in the heart of the losing streak. And he basically said, look, we're going to have troubles. We're in a rebuild. We're going to have stumbles, but we're not this bad. I agree. They are not this bad true talent-wise. Now, that doesn't mean they won't ultimately be this bad standings-wise, because there are lots of times where teams that are better, there are lots of teams that are better than their record talent-wise, and then they play poorly because the goaltending tanks, because the team isn't listening to the coach anymore, because a bunch of guys get hurt. Like, there are reasons for a team to be worse than to be better than their ultimate record. But I do think the Flyers are not the 32nd best team in hockey, true talent-wise. I don't think they're that bad.
Perhaps, no, they are not probably true talent worse than, the Sharks. Like, that feels like a pretty
Seems unlikely.
That feels like a pretty big stretch right there. But we now have a 50-game sample size going back to January 20th last season. They ended the season from January 20th on 13, 19, and 5 for a .431 points percentage. So going back to then, they have won 17 of their last 50 games. They're 17, 27, and 6 since January 20th. That's a points percentage of 400. For perspective, the Sharks are at 324. The Blackhawks are at 337. The Ducks are at 380. Those are the only teams with worse points percentages since last January 20th. it kind of feels like this is what the team is. While we like some of the pieces, and we're going to get into those guys and maybe why they're underperforming, it kind of feels like we have enough of a sample going back to when they fell off a cliff last year that they're at least a lot closer to this right now than what they were November through most of January last year. Is that fair?
Okay, so I have a question for you, because you know me, and you know how much I hate arbitrary breaking up of samples. Why did you pick January 20th?
Because that's when they started to fall apart last year.
But that's not really true. They went 6-3-1 in February. They had a couple games going into the All-Star break when they weren't playing well after the Carter Hart situation. Then they had a pretty good February. They really didn't fall off the cliff until March, really dating back to probably like the second game after they traded Sean Walker, because the first game, if you remember, they played quite well in Florida. I remember I covered that game. I'm just curious why you picked January 20th, because the only reason I could think of is that was the last game Carter Hart played. And if that's the case, are we saying that that's the biggest reason why they've dropped off? Is that the argument? It's an interesting argument. I'm just curious what argument you're making.
The argument is, like, yes, they had pockets where they weren't terrible, but that's when it really fell apart. And I do think goaltending, like, this isn't, I don't think this is like, oh man, Bill with this mind-blowing take. Like, a team without a number one goalie is probably not going to be very good. And that is what they have been. Like, Sam Ersson, yes, he is capable of playing well, and I think he's been mostly good this season. But no one's confusing him with Connor Hellebuck, you know? Sure. If he's your number one, where do you go after that? If you have Sam Ersson and another goalie as good as Sam Ersson, yeah, you're probably all right. But that is not the case right now, and I just think it's an encapsulation of what the team is from then to now. Like, they don't have that guy. He's gone. And since then, it has been a disaster. Do I think it's all Carter Hart? No. Like, Sean Walker, we saw last night, still a pretty damn effective player, you know? They've lost some guys. And, of course, right now, they're without Cam York. Ryan Poehling doesn't make the trip. They're missing guys right now. But a 400 points percentage over the course of 50 games is also a nice round number, 50 games, that I can, that makes, you know, the total points available out of 100. I can do that math on the points percentage very, very easy, Charlie. So that probably weighed into it as well. I'm just looking at it on the whole. They've been mostly bad since then. They've had some pockets, sure, but I'm just trying to look at a large sample size. 50 games, that's most of a season. It hasn't been going well since then.
Well, it's not really most of a season. It's about, what, 5/8 of a season? It's a little over half. We're not really talking about most of a season. The reason why
half is most, Charlie.
I mean, now we're stretching the definition of most here. The reason why I was intrigued by that date that you picked is because of the obvious Carter Hart reference, because that was the last game. January 20th was the last game Carter Hart played, I believe, for the Philadelphia Flyers. It was that game in Colorado when he got pulled.
Yeah.
If you actually want to make that, and to be clear, I disagree with your overarching premise. I actually think the team was playing pretty well up through the early part of March. So I think if you're really going to make that sort of, like, is this who they are, I think you have to start it out after the Sean Walker trade, in my opinion. But if you want to start it out with the Carter Hart thing, you could make a case that most of this issue is just goaltending. And here's the thing. Goaltending is part of the team. That is 100% true. However, what have we talked about on multiple occasions about the best way to tank? The best way to tank, if you want a high draft pick and don't want your team to be absolutely terrible while doing it, it's just to have real bad goaltending. And if you're going to say that they've had a 400 points percentage since they lost Carter Hart, in a sense, you could be making the case that whether intentionally or not, and I don't think it's intentional, that is more or less what they are doing. They are losing a lot of games because basically since then, they haven't had a backup goalie. And you saw what happened in the second half of last year when they ran Sam Ersson to the ground. When Sam Ersson is playing at a normal rate, I think at the very least he is a decent goalie. Yeah. He's passable. He's maybe a above replacement level, maybe league average-ish goalie. When he's getting overused, then he's bad. Well, regardless whether the backup's getting overused or rarely used, the backup has been awful, and that has been dragging this team down. So I don't think you could separate out, like, if we're talking about why this team is bad, why this team has been bad, if you want to say since January, if I want to say since March, whatever, a big portion of that is the goaltending. The save percentage has been terrible, and a big portion of that is because they haven't really had a backup goalie. Now, that is bad in the immediate, in the here and now, because they can't just snap their fingers and create a goalie. Like, that's a problem, and that's going to not necessarily resolve itself unless Alexei Kolosov becomes a great goalie overnight. And he shows flashes, but I don't think that's going to happen overnight. And I don't think Sam Ersson is going to walk through a portal and emerge as the second coming of Henrik Lundqvist either when he comes back. But goaltending is something that I would say, at least in theory, based on, I know Flyers fans will contend this because they watch bad goaltending for years, but at least in theory, goaltending can be fixed with the acquisition of like one player. Whereas if the overall team is just terrible, all 18 skaters, that takes a lot longer to fix. So if the goaltending is a big part of this, yes, it hurts this team in the short term, and it's going to make it more likely they're going to have a high pick, but it might not necessarily require the same doom and gloom, especially given the fact that they have a top-tier goalie prospect in Igor Zavragin over in Russia. Granted, not going to be here for a few years, but he could be a guy who solves that problem in the long term. It could be a reason why, even if this seems bad, maybe it's not necessarily warranting serious doom and gloom in the sense of a team that just has nothing.
Oh, and I don't think like it is doom and gloom. I am very disappointed in a lot of the pieces of this quote unquote young core, but we'll get to them
Agreed.
in a minute, just the way they've started the season. But I want to get into some of your advanced numbers, because I took a look at Natural Stat Trick and I went back to January 20th, all the regular season games. And to your point, like, yeah, they've been losing, and a lot of that might be just based on the goaltending has sucked. It has. Since January 20th, they're right around break even though they're bad this year in some of these categories.
Because they were pretty good for a lot of last year in play driving, even after the Carter Hart.
Yes.
Even after that. Pretty good.
Since then, they're right around break even in expected goals for percentage and scoring chance percentage. They're like 50.1 something. So they're like most, they got most of the chance, even though and then that gets to the overall talent level and how if they're only going to create 50% of the chances between the goaltending and the team's overall finishing ability, that's not enough right now. Like, that's going to lead them to be who they are. Okay, yeah, we're not playing necessarily bad. Like, I don't think they were bad last night, even though they only had 6 shots for the final 40 minutes. That's not a good number. Maybe take a page out of Carolina's book and try to get, goals on Kochetkov when he's giving up 1 out of 4. But, that's small picture stuff last night. But just looking overall, like, if they can't finish, if the finishing continues at this rate and the goaltending continues at this rate, this is exactly who they are.
Yeah, well, the goaltending, and we talked about that, as I said, unless Sam Ersson takes a step or unless one of their backups, emerges as not even good, but just passable statistically, that's going to stay a problem. The thing that I find myself the most concerned about when you ask me, are they this bad? There's one area where I don't think they should be, but they have been this year. And it strikes me as the biggest mystifying thing of the season. Because, like, the goaltending being bad, like, that's frustrating. It's not mystifying. We knew it was a question. Yeah. John Tortorella said in training camp, like, goaltending scares him to death. Like, now Sam Ersson's hurt. They're using a guy who 6 weeks ago was in Russia. Like, yeah.
Didn't want to come.
It's probably a problem. But one thing I didn't think was going to be a problem, and it's been maybe their biggest problem. We saw it. You alluded to it a few minutes ago when we were talking about last night's game. It's not even the finishing. The finishing has actually gotten better this year. They're finishing at a higher rate than last year by a not insignificant margin. The problem is shot creation and chance creation. The problem is they are not generating enough raw offense, period. And the reason why it's so weird is because it wasn't even, like, this isn't a case of they were mediocre at it last year and they've taken a step back. They were actively good at it last year. Last year, and I think these are all situations numbers. I'm not going to give you the individual numbers, the individual digits, because you don't care about that. I'm going to give you the rankings, okay? Last year, The Flyers in shots on goal per 60 minutes in all situations ranked 5th. In shot attempts per 60 minutes in all situations, they ranked 8th. In expected goals in all situations per 60 minutes, this is by the evolving hockey expected goal definition. So there's different models, but I'm going by evolving hockey because it's my favorite. They were 18th. So 5th, 8th, and 18th. That's a legitimately good shot volume team, and it's a middle of the road shot quality team. That's solid. That's perfectly solid. This year, shots on goal per 60 in all situations, they ranked 30th. Shot attempts per 60 in all situations, 31st. Expected goals per 60 in all situations, 30th. They are not generating shots. They are not generating chances. They're actually, as I said, finishing at a higher rate than they did last year because I guess you kind of have to. And, last night certainly helped when they were scoring on, a quarter of their shots or something. Yeah. They're not creating. They're just not. And that's the one thing where I wonder, like when you say, are they this bad? The goaltending might be true talent this bad, okay? The finishing ability, the skill level, that might be true talent level this bad. But over a large sample last year, they were not this bad at generating shots. And this year, they have been horrific at it. And I've spent the last week quizzing players, talking to Tortorella about it, trying to figure out what the heck is wrong. And everybody has theories. But it doesn't change the fact that they can say that it's about, they're not pinching enough, that the third man high isn't being consistent enough, that the passing's off, that guys are trying to take it on themselves and do too much one-on-one. You can say all those things. And that's great. That's great that they're in tape study and they're figuring it out. They're identifying the problems. But you do all that, and then you go out there, and in the final 40 minutes of the game last night, you have 6 shots on goal. I think that's why I'm so frustrated with last night's game, because everybody I talked to over the last 2 or 3 days was like, we're figuring it out. We're addressing it. We've identified the problem. It's going to get fixed. And then the final 40 minutes, you did exactly what you've been doing the past week, where you just got no shots on goal whatsoever. And you lucked out because you got 2 fluky-ish goals. But if that didn't happen, you get blown out by the Hurricanes. And then you're not talking about it being a fun game. You're talking about it being a debacle. If they don't fix this shot volume problem, this is going to be an unbelievably long season and an unbelievably difficult season to watch.
Now, they did play the Hurricanes tough a few times last year. They didn't have much success, but they played them tough. But honestly, one of the reasons I'm not that frustrated, like overall, yeah, this is a problem. We've done the shots by period thing a number of times this year, and it's sub 10, sub 7, sub 5 in a period. Martinez today on Flyers Daily said they've had 6 periods where they have 3 shots on goal.
That's wild.
That's 2 whole games.
Wild.
Yeah. And the reason I'm not, while that's an overall frustrating problem, it's the Hurricanes. That's what they do. So that's exactly what I expected last night.
And that's fair if it hadn't happened all last week.
If it's not happening so much leading up to it. Absolutely.
If it was a one-time thing, sure, I can accept that. Carolina has the puck the whole game.
Yes.
But the thing is that when the previous 3 games, you averaged fewer than 20 shots on goal across those 3 games, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't care if you're playing the Red Army team from back in the mid-'70s. Every time you get the puck, shoot it. I don't care. You can't have another game where you don't get any shots. And for the first period, they actually did. First period, they racked up some shots. You're like, hey, maybe they're figuring this out. And then final 2 periods, it was right back to missed shots, holding the puck too long, passes that are just a tick off, shooting into shin pads. It's just the same thing over and over again. And, it's hard for me to get frustrated with the goaltending because I expect Alexei Kolosov to struggle. He's a rookie. Ivan Fedotov, once we got a handle that he just might not be an NHL goalie, I don't know. I can't get mad at him. Maybe that's just who he is. Yeah. But when I see a team that last year was really good at this one thing and this year isn't just mediocre at it, they're horrific at it. That's when I pull my hair out because it's what changed? You're basically the same team. Sean Walker didn't matter that much.
Charlie, I'm telling you, I think over the last few seasons in Philadelphia, we have discovered the 2 most underrated defensemen of all time in Matt Niskanen and Sean Walker, and they should at least get retroactive Norris votes. Maybe not win, but be 8th. Yeah, just maybe that's what we've come to the conclusion of. But yeah, this is the baffling thing is that part of the game has taken, again, like the goalies, you said the coach told us it scares him. Like John Tortorella is just looking into a camera and going, I don't know, they might suck. Like,
Yep.
to be expected. But this part of the game, the shot creation, the chance creation, it's all the same guys. And you added Matvei Michkov, who,
Exactly.
he hasn't been awesome at 5-on-5, but has at least created some chances for you, and he's made the power play considerably better.
And that's the thing they're doing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like they're doing this with a better power play.
How many times?
Imagine if the power play was as bad as it was last year. They would be averaging like 14 shots a game.
How many times since like the middle of last season up until today have we said, if they just had a not incompetent power play, they easily make the playoffs last year? And now they have, it's had some ups and downs, but they have a mostly not incompetent power play.
It is a 20% power play. They're ranked 14th in the NHL. We would have killed for that.
They're freaking in last place. If they're at 20% last year, they're third in the division. Like, it's insane the way this has gone, and we can blame the goaltending for a lot of it, but this is where I get frustrated with some of the individual guys, all who were here for at least parts of last season. But before we do that, Chuck, I do have to take a quick second, because we've been ranting for 21 minutes now, to tell you about our presenting sponsor, our friends at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. You know what has been ordinary? My bets on Bet365. The pregame bets have not been going well for me, so maybe you should download the app and fade me. Whatever I'm betting, just go the other way. Whatever it is, you need to download the Bet365 app right now. And use the code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets. When you bet just $5, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. I've been telling you about the early payout offers, the almost 100,000 different, or almost 1 million different live streamed events each year. It's one of the pioneers of live sports betting. You need to check out Bet365 right now. Must be 21 or older and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And while we're here, maybe we all just need an ice cold Coors Light, Charlie. Between work, social media, the choices of life, whatever it is, it's no wonder we're all just kind of worked up. Coors Light celebrates rising above and choosing a chill mindset. Perhaps we all just need to chill with this team because they are what they are. We know they drive us nuts, and that's why sometimes I need to chill. There's no better way to chill than with an ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about goaltenders, shots on goal, maybe the draft lottery already. Hey, it's November 6th. Why not? You need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, sometimes you just got to chill. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Find a store near you by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. All right, Charlie. I'm going to ask, later on, I guess, was this the plan all along? Not that they were lying, saying they wanted to play the competitive games, but it does seem, hey, if goaltending fell apart last year and we think maybe that was a big part of the problem, maybe address it, and they did the opposite. But let me talk about the skaters right now, because the skaters, particularly the quote-unquote young core of forwards.
Yeah, I want to talk about this young core.
Are the guys
and there are specific guys we're going to talk about. It's a major problem.
Are the guys who aren't coming through, like right now, the only players that I can say are at least as good as they were last year, I guess we can throw Cam York in there, but he's hurt, so in my mind, he doesn't exist. Object permanence, etc. Sanheim and Konechny, prime age players already signed to long-term contracts. Guys, we know who they are, and they're playing the way we expect them to. They have been what they should be. But then we get to Owen Tippett, 2 goals, 8 points. Joel Farabee, 2 goals, 6 points. Morgan Frost, 1 goal last night, and he really didn't want to score it, 6 points. Bobby Brink, 2 goals, 5 points. Tyson Forster, 2 goals, 3 points. Jamie Drysdale, 1 goal, 3 points. Noah Cates, no goals, 1 point. Take it away. Who do you want to start with?
I feel like, Jason Kelsey here, like,
It's the
but
whole effing team.
but the thing is, it's not. And I think this is one of my real big concerns. Like, the goaltending, is it a concern? It's a concern in the here and now. I do believe it can be resolved over the long term, and if it ends up being the cause of why one of the big causes of why this season goes badly, I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to stay the cause for the next 4 to 5 years. But you mentioned a few guys. You mentioned Konechny and Sanheim as guys who are living up to expectations. I'm actually going to expand the list because I think there are more. And I want to talk about the guys who I think are, because I think it zeroes in on a point. So Konechny and Sanheim, yes, Konechny is above a point per game. Maybe it's come in bunches, but you know what? He's doing what he's paid to do. Great game last night for Travis Konechny. Cool. Travis Sanheim, basically been good since the start. Cam York was good until he got hurt. Okay, Cam York is an exception because I'm going to get to him. I think overall, and I know people are gonna say this isn't true, but Sean Couturier is delivering about what I reasonably hope for from him. He's around that 3/4 of a point per game range. He's one of the team's best play drivers at 5-on-5. He's not the Sean Couturier from 2018 anymore. He's not. But he's still a perfectly acceptable, second line, middle six type center. He's fine. Okay. Michkov is a rookie. Okay. But 10 points in 13 games, you know what? Yeah, there's going to be growing pains, but I'm not going to criticize him too much. John Tortorella can do what he wants to do with him and, make his changes and bench him or whatever. That's fine. As someone who is looking at the long term, I'm not going to pin this on Michkov too much.
No.
But there's a couple other guys who I will say, like, if you're basing this on what are reasonable expectations for them, I think Ristolainen's been fine. I think Garnet Hathaway's been fine. I think Nick Seeler's been fine. I even think if you're just talking about points and overall play, Scott Laughton's been about what you expect him to be. You know what? Like, have any of them been great? Have any of them been, oh my God, they're amazing? No, but like, that's not who they are as players. They are middle to bottom of the lineup guys who are playing like perfectly acceptable middle to bottom of the lineup guys. Here's my concern, because you mentioned the young core. With the exception of Cam York and Matvei Michkov, and Michkov's obviously going through the early, button heads with Torts, which we knew was going to happen, whatever. That's a process. He's 19 years old. So really, with the exception of Cam York, all the guys I mentioned are veterans. They're all mature veterans. They are the kinds of guys who they've been through enough of this that they can probably shake off the day-to-day BS of hockey and not being happy and being frustrated and working through things. The veterans are mostly, I wouldn't say exceeding expectations, but they're mostly doing what you can reasonably expect them to do.
Agreed.
It's the young core, and I don't even want to call them a core. It's the young players that are dramatically falling short of expectations.
The group of guys.
And that's a concern on multiple levels. It's a concern, number one, because those were the guys that they needed to take steps forward for this team to be good this year. But on the bigger level, those are the guys that need to continue to take steps forward if this rebuild is going to work. And that's my big concern. Because, look, Scott Laughton being on a 32-point pace, cool. That's what he's getting paid to do. Yeah. Sure. But you know what? Scott Laughton is not going to be part of this team 6 years down the road. He's not going to be part of the team that you're hoping is going to be a cup contender.
I know you're doing,
but seriously,
I agree.
At most, he's going to be a fourth liner who's getting 8-9 minutes a night to be a glue guy in the locker room, Dave Andreychuk style. That's the most he's going to be. It's guys like Morgan Frost, like Owen Tippett, like Joel Farabee, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forrester, Jamie Drysdale. These are the guys that need over the next 2, 3, 4 years to continue to take steps forward. It's early. We're only 13 games in. But it's concerning that not only have none of those guys taken steps forward, they've basically, so far at least, and again, it's early, they look like they're regressing. That's a real concern.
No, and that's where my frustration comes in, because I referred to them as the young core, but really it's outside of Cam York, who, he's the one who's actually performed.
Yeah, he's the one who's exceeded or at least lived up to expectations.
These group of underperforming players, all around 25 or younger, they're the ones that we're picking and choosing. All right, some of you are going to make up the team we go forward with. Now, Michkov is in 100%. Tippett, he signed long term. Hopefully, this is just a bad year. It happens. It's not cool when it's happening, but plenty of guys have plenty of good goal scorers have a year where it's like, yeah, man, he had 13 goals and the next year he had 40. Like, it just happens sometimes. He shot 2%. So maybe that's what's happening with Owen Tippett. Or perhaps last night was the beginning of a turnaround. But just looking at these...
All goal scorers are streaky, William.
Yeah, it happens. Like, when I ask, was this the plan, like, all along? Like, I don't think they necessarily came in tanking. But if the plan, again, was to be competitive all year, but then not address goaltending except for Ivan Fedotov, who we don't know if he can play the position at all in this league, like, that seems a little iffy. But that's fine. Cool. Whatever. They need more talent, so if they suck, it makes the current season less interesting and less fun, like in the here and now. But big picture, it's probably a good thing. But the frustrating part is I can't point to one of these guys outside of Cam York who make up, hopefully, what this young core will be in the next few years, who looks like they're better than last season. It looks as if they have all either plateaued or taken a step back or whatever happened. And let's say it was March last year when they really started to fall apart. Whatever happened in March and through the final month and a half of the season, it's continuing for them. They're the players that are going to be counted on to carry this thing at some point. And it simply is not happening. And that's very concerning, considering some of them are going to have to be here. Like, we can't trade 9 of these guys.
Yeah. I just worry. And again, this is in part because we just lived through it. I want to make it clear. I am not making the Vigneault Tortorella comparable, but we lived through the 2020 through 2022 run where basically every single guy in his early to mid-20s that you thought was going to be the next core all just fell off at the same time. And after watching that, I can't rule out the possibility that it could be happening again. And what we know is that when it happened the last time, when guys like Ivan Provorov and obviously Carter Hart, there was another situation, but even before that situation, he wasn't developing into the superstar goalie that a lot of people thought he was going to be in 2019, 2020.
Not Carey Price.
Yeah. Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, Travis Konechny had that 2-year blip where you're like, what is he? Yeah. Phil Myers fell off a cliff. Nolan Patrick, there's injuries involved, but I don't know what he would have been even if the injuries don't hit. Like, that happened where you had all these guys in their early to mid-20s just didn't progress the way you wanted them to. And it's 13 games in. I am not ready to throw in the towel on any of these guys, really. But it's just because it happened so recently to the last group of early to mid-20s guys that when you see all of these guys struggling at the same time, you can't help but worry that it's happening again.
It is certainly a real concern, but you've laid out a few reasons why you think it might turn around for at least a few of them. Yeah,
like there are some guys where I have a pretty good handle on what I think their true talent levels are, and they're underperforming it so much that it strikes me as unlikely. Like, for example, I know you tossed that in there about Owen Tippett. Like, Owen Tippett is not a guy who I expect is going to score 13 goals over 82 games. Now, he's banked this cold stretch to start the year, and maybe he won't be able to catch up. Even if the rest of the year he produces at his normal level, that probably is only going to put him at 24, 25 goals over the year, and then that's a disappointing year for him, especially when you're hoping he's going to, he hasn't even hit 30 yet. You're hoping he develops and becomes a 40-goal scorer, and he hasn't even hit 30 yet. That's having a down year lowers the chances of that happening. But I do think he's going to score more. Noah Cates, I think, is one of the best two-way players on this team. He's shown it in multiple years. Thus far this season, he has the worst expected goals for percentage on the team at a little under 32%. Like, I don't think Noah Cates is going to score 50 points for this team anytime soon, but I'm pretty confident he ain't that bad at all the little things that he's always been good at. Tyson Forrester, after watching him all last year be dominant along the boards and make a lot of super smart plays, like, I don't think he's going to continue to hold a 40% expected goal rate of 5-on-5. I don't think that's him. So I do think there are some players that are just naturally going to improve because it's hard for me to envision a world where they're actually this bad. But then there's other guys like Morgan Frost, like Joel Farabee. Like I hesitate to throw Drysdale there because I never thought he was going to put it together this year.
Yeah.
But like with Farabee, and interestingly enough, Tortorella has actually praised him over the last few games. I don't think he was going to praise anybody after last night's game, but he did praise Farabee after Saturday's game. Said Joel's playing well, the puck's just not going in for him. Fair. That said, he's a scorer. Like, honestly, like the puck kind of has to go in for him to be valuable. Like the ship, I think, has sailed for Joel Farabee to be this dominant two-way player in the vein of Justin Williams, like we thought he might be 3-4 years ago. If he's going to be valuable, he's got to score points. 2 goals and 6 points in 13 games. That's not enough. Morgan Frost, he cannot every year start out this slow if he wants to be a contributing player on a consistent contender. And I like Morgan Frost's skill level a lot. I like him a lot as a player. I like him a lot as a person. I think he's a hardworking guy whose heart's in the right place. But he can't be bad for the first 2 months of every season if he wants to have a place on this team long term. He just can't.
No, and it just seems like this stagnation, those two players specifically, like honestly, Bobby Brink, like
we don't know what he is yet.
Yeah, like that's my thing is his ceiling is sheltered third liner who helps your power play. Like he can do some things for you. He's never going to be a 20-minute all situations guy. He is a role player. His role is create some offense with some good matchups. Like
and he has a longer runway to get there.
Yeah,
you know, this is just his second year, and he didn't even really play the full year last year. Like I'm not ready to say with certainty what Bobby Brink is. Just like I'm not ready to say with certainty like what Tyson Forrest is going to be. They're still young. But guys like Farabee and Frost, like they're in their mid-20s. This is supposed to be the time.
They've been here forever. Like we're looking at these guys, like Joel Farabee, that was a Ron Hextall pick, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like
last one.
That's a long time ago. Morgan Frost, Charlie, Kelly and I talked about it last night. That 2017 draft, it was a long freaking time ago. Like guys are on superstar contracts who came out of that draft now. Like you're in your prime, dude. If this is all you are, like it's over. You're never going to be anything more than you are right now. And I'm worried about those two specifically.
I'm not ready to say that this is who they are. Like again, I will reiterate. It's only 13 games in. You know, if Joel Farabee has a big November or a big December, suddenly we're like, hey, he's having a pretty good year. Same with Morgan Frost to a degree, although I think Frost is a little bit different because the early season struggles have been a recurring theme for him. So I'm a little bit hesitant to cut him all the slack in the world if he gets hot in January, just because he always gets hot in January. It's like you got to be better in the beginning of the year, man. But like it is early. I'm not ready to write any of these guys off. I think these guys are talented. I think these guys can be better. But when all of the guys in a certain age range are struggling at the same time, it's hard not to start wondering if there's something else going on here beyond just, well, they just happen to be all in slumps. Like, I don't know. Is the message not getting through to them? Like, I don't know.
And that's like when we say it's early, like it gets early late in this league. Yeah, you can always turn it around. And there's like, you know, the Blues are the classic example, came into the Wells Fargo Center in like January in last place. And then they go on to win the cup. It's like, It's not the most impossible thing in the world.
But it's real hard.
But it's really, really hard.
Really hard.
And the thing about the theory behind the way they're doing this rebuild is we're going to play these meaningful games in February, March, maybe even April. You know, they went all the way to game 82 last year. Meaningful games late in the season. If you have these early struggles like Morgan Frost has had, like Joel Farabee is now having, like your hot streak in January is not going to mean a damn thing when you're 30 points out. Yeah. Like that's it, okay. Sure. You're eliminated. It's pointless. I don't care. These are games that are just on the schedule and you're only playing them because that's the rule. Like if you don't show up early, this whole meaningful game thing, there aren't any meaningful games. And so I'm not really evaluating you on what you do on a Tuesday in February when like there's 12,000 people in the seats because you pissed away the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go as far as you. Like, I do believe that you can still glean a lot from, full season data sets and whatnot. But I understand where you're coming from. And I think the interesting part about it, Bill, is that I think the Flyers decision makers are more on your side than mine, which leads you to ask the question of, okay, well, if Danny Briere and Keith Jones think you learn more about, and John Tortorella for that matter, if they think you learn more about players when the games are meaningful, and the games stop being meaningful in January, and this is supposed to be a fact-finding year, how much are they actually going to be learning about these guys? Like, for me, I would look at it as if the games still matter, players are still playing for pride, and you can glean things from, quote-unquote meaningless games. But I do think that the Flyers' brain trust is more in your corner than they are in mine, which makes you wonder if this thing really continues to go off the rails and by the end of December, early January, they are functionally out of a playoff spot.
Well,
what will they think they're learning about these guys at that point? I don't know.
And I'm going to ask you a question about that. But first, this breaking news segment is brought to you by Indeed. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility in Indeed.com/AllCity. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Listen, this isn't really like the biggest breaking news. I just haven't done that like at all. I've done like one or two of these breaking news things ever, and we're supposed to do them when stuff happens. And something has happened, Charlie. The Philadelphia Flyers tweeted a few minutes ago, we have recalled Tony Dick. They didn't say that.
Tony Dick's back.
We have recalled Anthony Richard from the Phantoms, additionally placed Ryan Poehling on injured reserve, retroactive to November 2nd. So they have made a call up, and I wanted to ask you a little later, like, all right, if this is what this season's going to be and there's not going to be a trade, because that's my thing, like maybe at a certain point, there needs to be that Billy Bean, you just got to shake things up trade.
Maybe.
Or even if not like a shake things up, do it for the hell of it trade. Like maybe try to balance this roster, because I do think there's a part of this that's like, yeah, man, none of these lines are clicking because we have 7 right wings for 3 spots, so everyone's out of position a little bit. And maybe with no centers that you can count on outside of the 31-year-old who it's like, all right, yeah, I guess we can keep playing him 20 minutes, but we saw how that went last year. Maybe you trade a couple of these right wings for a youngish center or something. Like, I don't know, but outside of that, why not get a look at some of these younger guys? Me, personally, I'd prefer it be like Tuamala or Lixell. But Anthony Richard, hey, he looked good in the preseason. He's up. Like, if this is what the season is, let's get a look at more guys.
Yeah, I don't agree with you there. I see where you're coming from, because, I mean, and you've put it a couple times, you're just like, if you're bringing up veterans from the AHL, it's like, what's the point? What am I learning from seeing Anthony Richard for the long term? It seems like a waste of a roster spot. The way the Flyers will look at it, and again, this just comes down to their view of the prospects down there, they don't want to bring a guy up unless they feel like he's fully ready. They clearly don't feel like Samu Tuamala. Although Excel, I think they know is ready. I just don't think they value him that highly. And probably Richard's playing a little better, whatever. Tuamala, I just don't think they think he's ready. I think if he keeps playing well, he probably will come up at some point this year, if even just for a look, the way they gave Tyson Forrester a look. But there's an element of, like, fans always want the shiny new toy in terms of a prospect. But then if the shiny new toy was called up too soon and in those 5 games he struggles, then suddenly it's, oh, he sucks. Like, send him back, he's bad, and then it colors their view of him forever because he came up too early. I would rather them call up a guy when they feel like he's truly ready to excel, rather than just bringing him up because, like, it's more fun to watch Tuamala than Richard. That's where I fall. I see where you're coming from, but that's where I fall.
Like, I think they have like 69 games left. Nice.
They got time.
Like, I'm not saying bring up Tuamala and he's got to play every freaking night. I'm just, like the Forster thing you just mentioned. Give him a look. Like, if it's okay.
And that didn't happen until like February.
Sure, and I'm not saying it has to happen right now. Like the Richard thing, cool, whatever. I don't care. That's fine. You need someone to play, but it's just like, all right, you've decided, at least for right now, Bobby Brink. We don't know if he's an 82 game set it and forget it guy. The idea that he's got to come out and Nick Delorier has to go in. Like, listen, I want to see Nick Delorier play, especially if they suck, because, like, at least I get to watch some fights. But, like, why not get some more data? I don't value honestly, the who's ready and who's not evaluation from this front office, because they don't know. They've never been proven right about anything. As soon as they start showing that they're right about something, I'll believe it. But until then, like, I don't know, 3 games in the NHL isn't going to make or break any prospect. And if it colors my opinion of them, who cares? If you're making decisions based on what I say, my God.
Well, I care.
Let me run the organization then.
And I have to deal with everyone on social media every day. So maybe that's more for me, that I don't have to deal with people deciding that prospects stink and then hearing everybody on Twitter yell at me of like, why are they calling him up? He was bad for 2 games in January. So maybe that's more of my bias than anything else. But I do think the Flyers believe that they don't want to call guys up until they believe they're ready to excel. They don't want to just call them up because, like, well, that would be cool. Even though it would be cool. It would be cooler to see Samuel Tuomalu than Anthony Richard, even though Richard had a good camp. As you said,
well, yeah.
I think where the Flyers are at, too, right now with this call-up is right now, if you say, like, what's the point? The point is they are still focused on salvaging this season. Maybe not salvaging it to the point of making the playoffs. But it goes back to what you were saying earlier about meaningful games. They want to turn this thing around so that they can play meaningful games deep into the season. So their mindset when they're looking at call-ups right now is who can help us turn this around, not who would be the most fun to watch in November. Like, I think that's where the Richard idea comes from instead of a Tuomalu or maybe even a Lycksell, is that, hey, Richard's playing the best right now. We need a boost while Poehling's out. Richard brings a lot more speed than Lycksell does. Like, Poehling's a fast guy. Richard's a fast guy. He can slide right into that role, help out maybe on the PK a little bit. That's where I think their heads are at. It's not that they view it as like, well, we're just burning a roster spot on a guy who doesn't matter. They think it matters if the team turns it around, and they think he will help them turn it around more than giving Tuomalu a game or 2.
And like this point in the season, pre-Thanksgiving, that's how they need to look at it. Like, absolutely. That's why I don't have a problem with this right now. But moving forward, maybe. All right,
one thing I do want to touch on before
I got to get to these reads first, Charlie.
Okay, get to the reads. I'll talk to it after.
All right. I want to talk to you about TrueMark Financial Credit Union. I've been telling you for months now, you need to make the switch from your big bank to TrueMark Financial Credit Union. The main reason, it's the structure, man. Big banks, where you're probably doing a majority of your banking, they're for-profit institutions owned by shareholders, and they operate with the primary goal of generating profits for those shareholders, whereas credit unions like TrueMark Financial are not for-profit financial co-ops owned by their members. So if you live or work in Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, or Philadelphia counties, you're eligible to join, and member benefits include great rates, lower fees, and that personalized service. Who doesn't want personalized service from their bank? That's what you get at TrueMark Financial, with advisors at every location to provide you personalized financial planning and expertise, and so you can learn more about goal setting for long-term financial security. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA as an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. And while we're here, we're sitting here, we're evaluating these players in the first, few games of the season. And fair or not, your performance will be graded from the first impression you make. Ask Ivan Fedotov how important a first impression can be. So you want that first impression to be a lasting impression with a strong, hard performance, especially early in the season. That's where Blue Chew comes in, baby. Blue Chew helps boost your confidence in the bedroom so you can stay hard and perform at your very best. So the next time someone says your game is all about speed, you can say, hold on. I'm here to play for all 60 minutes, maybe even into overtime. What is Blue Chew? Blue Chew is an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but at a fraction of the cost and in a chewable form. Process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. And the fine folks at Blue Chew are putting their money where their mouth is. You can try Blue Chew tablets free for a month and see for yourself. They say there's nothing sexier than confidence, and Blue Chew can give you your confidence to get greasy and go hard into the crease. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code ALLCITY at checkout Just pay the $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code ALLCITY to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. All right, Charlie, I don't remember where we were, so you got to pick up whatever you were saying.
I think this is the first day where the Blue Chew read did not make me laugh, but what are you going to do?
It's, we're all just trying.
But anyway, what I wanted to get into, because you mentioned it briefly in your discussion about what comes next, and I thought you brought up something interesting, which is the idea of a trade. Now, normally, I would say that I don't expect the Flyers to make a trade midseason, especially this early. Trades tend to happen around the deadline. Danny Briere, with the notable exception of the Drysdale-Gauthier deal, but that was a very special circumstance because of everything. We've gone through that, forever, so we don't need to rehash that one. Generally speaking, Briere seems to make his moves in the offseason or around the deadline. So normally I'd say no. But here's something I do want to point out. Why is John Tortorella here? Okay, John Tortorella is here in part because they think he can be the arbiter of who's got it and who doesn't.
Yep.
Okay. Right now, this team don't got it.
Nope.
And what is interesting to me is that the guys who are struggling the most are the guys who, in theory, have the most trade value. Because, look, you're obviously not going to trade Travis Konechny even if you wanted to. He's got no trade protection. Sean Couturier's contract is essentially untradeable. They're not trading Matvei Michkov because if they do, they're absolutely insane.
Then I quit.
Yeah. And then guys like, they just re-signed Garner Hathaway, Nick Seeler, they just re-signed. These are guys they're not going to trade. The guys who have trade value are the guys who are struggling. And what I do wonder is if the Flyers were so inclined to make a shake-it-up trade, it could theoretically be in line with John Tortorella going to Danny Briere and saying, hey, this guy who is in his prime, who has trade value, I've made the determination that he just doesn't have what it takes to be an impact piece on a cup contender, that he just doesn't have whatever John Tortorella thinks he needs to have in order to be that guy. And if that's the case, do the Flyers make a move? In late November, in December, to both shake things up, but also, because I don't think they would make a move just to shake things up for this season. I think they know that, they want the team to be better this year, but they're not going to do something just to save this season. It doesn't matter to them that much. What does matter to them, though, is determining who should be part of this long term and who shouldn't. And if they think that they can kind of do two things at once, they can shake things up and show guys that, hey, we're willing to ship guys out, while also removing a guy or two, who knows, who John Tortorella, that arbiter of dog, if you want to call it, if he tells them this guy don't got it, I could see that. I don't think that is completely crazy based on what they have laid out as John Tortorella's job here. That isn't just coaching the team. It is to have roster input in that way. And there are a lot of guys with trade value who are struggling, who, if they wanted to, and if John Tortorella said, yeah, he just don't got it, maybe they do look to move him early. I don't know.
And maybe this is a little bit more down the line thinking, but to your point, the bunch of bottom six guys, like your Lawton, your Kate, that whole group, Poehling, I don't know if you need all those players, but even the glut of wingers we have and Morgan Frost, at a certain point, they are going to need the roster spots for Jet Luchenko, who has already made this team once.
Yeah.
For Oliver Bonk, for Denver Barkey, for, at least one or two. Right now, they have the best odds to get the top pick in the draft. Will that hold? I don't know. The goalies aren't getting any better anytime soon, I don't think. So it could. You are going to need these roster spots at some point. That list, I think Tortorella has a 2-column list on his desk. Has it, doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Language might be a little bit more colorful than that, but
he at least has it in his head.
He at least has it in his head. And if you, at a certain point, we have to make these determinations. We already did some of the subtracting, the Ivan Provorov, the Kevin Hayes, the Tony D. There's going to be another wave of that at some point. it could be sooner than the trade deadline or the offseason. That's my guess.
Yeah,
Like, I think it could happen. We've already seen, I know it's early, we've already seen 2 trades. We saw Olimata to Utah. We saw the Leafs finally move Liljegren. Like, these are also kind of special circumstances, trades, but trades have happened. It's not totally impossible.
It's not. And I want to make it clear, like, I don't want this to come off as me saying, like, I don't think, unnamed player has it. I think he should be traded.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm saying is this is the organization that the Flyers have built. They have built an organization where John Tortorella has serious input on whether guys should stay or go. We saw it with Kevin Hayes in particular. Kevin Hayes is beloved in that room. Kevin Hayes is still beloved in that room. There are guys he's still buddies with in that room, and they decided he needed to go because he just didn't have whatever John Tortorella felt like guys should have to be on a cup contending team, the cup contending team they're trying to build. And if John Tortorella, look, we've already seen a lot of the guys that we talked about in this show. I'd say with probably the only exception really is Owen Tippett. Clear John Tortorella likes Owen Tippett, and Owen Tippett signed to a long-term deal, so I don't think he's getting moved. But basically all the other guys we talked about, John Tortorella has at times expressed serious frustration with their play at one time or another. Do I think it's crazy that at some point in the next couple of weeks, John Tortorella could have a conversation with Danny Briere and say, I want this guy out of here? I don't think that's crazy because that's the organization the Flyers have built. They might be wrong to have built an organization like that, and I may ultimately disagree with whoever John Tortorella decides he wants out. I might be like, nah, I think he's way better than Torts thinks he is. But they've given Tortorella that power, and as long as John Tortorella is here, he's theoretically going to have that power. Else, why is he here?
No, we've said that all along. Like, when he took the job about, like, returning the Flyers to that level of respectability where we all believe they belong because they're the freaking Philadelphia Flyers. If you're me and Charlie's age, and especially if you're older than us, because we caught the tail end of the nonstop good times. They've been a premier organization for most of their 50-plus years of existence, and the last few have really gone the other way. Like, that's the job of more than just a head coach. Like, a head coach can only do so much. And Torts, he's clearly more than just a head coach. And at a certain point, we're going to have to start making these determinations again. And we know Torts, really good coach, really good hockey man. Also, he can be, at times, as emotional as the craziest fan. Yeah. And maybe this losing streak goes a few more games, and it's like, now I can't do this anymore on whoever. Like, not even like you said, to name names, but someone, just so we can start moving forward or see something else, because what we're seeing ain't working.
Yeah. I mean, and if, like, I don't think they're going to fire John Tortorella.
No.
So, like, if you're not going to do that shakeup, I mean, I don't think, maybe something happens at the end of the year. I think that's, he's not a young man. You never know. But, like, I don't see this ending unless, there's some type of major incident that happens. I don't see this ending with John Tortorella getting fired in early December. No. So if they're going to make some sort of, like, shake it up thing, it might have to be a trade. And I guess we would then see if Danny Briere has the appetite for it.
All right, before we wrap up today's show, I want to thank all of our diehards. Thank you to all the recent signups, all of the longtime diehards. Very much appreciate it. And for all you diehards, listen, if you're not one yet, you can still sign up at allphly.com so you can read some of this premium content, like something that came out today that we're going to be doing this season, Madeline Campbell and her Phantoms October notebook. That's right. We got reports on some of the top players for the Philadelphia Phantoms. Philadelphia. That's funny. Lehigh Valley Phantoms.
A long time
since Flyers.
Philadelphia Phantoms.
Yeah, it's been like 20 years. Get over it, Bill. The AHL affiliate. Good report there on guys like Tuamala and Lixell and my guy Hunter McDonald and so many more. So you're going to want to check that out at allphly.com. All right, Charlie. We're going to do some Super Chats. All right.
We have Super Chats.
Three Super Chats today. This first one from Spiral Out says, fellas and Kelly, bring it every time they're on air. Keep it rolling. Thank you so much, Spiral Out. Yeah, we're doing the best we can. Listen, the Flyers might not have it every night, but I'm going to be yelling and screaming and doing my song and dance, and Charlie's going to be a capital J journalist. So, and Kelly's just the absolute best. So we're going to do our best even when this team doesn't. All right. From Gary B., we have, is Richard naturally a center? I use him as such an NHL 25. Let's effing go Flyers. I have no idea, but he's replacing Poehling.
He's played some center, but I think he's going to be a wing. Okay. I think the Cates will probably stay in the middle, and Richard will be on the wing.
They still have Cates and Lawton who can fill in. They're the swing forwards, and I assume them being NHL regulars will keep them at center.
You would think.
Vineet Singh with the final super chat of the day. Natchez is a UFA in 2 years. Given Carolina has big money tied up in Aho, Svechnikov, and Jarvis, will he resign? He was
That's an interesting question.
He was the best Kane by far last night. Listen, I was just trying to find an article today, and I didn't come across one that actually laid out what the Canes were looking for in that trade this offseason. They did turn down some proposals. Man, you said it last night, Charlie. I bet a lot of teams might be kicking themselves about not ponying up for Marty Natchez based on the way he started this season. He looks real good.
Yeah, and I don't know. What I can say
I have no idea if he's going to resign.
Generally speaking, with Carolina, when they open the door to moving on from someone, they usually ultimately move on from that player at some point. Now, whether that's in a trade or whether he hits free agency, I guess we'll have to wait and see, because he does seem to be taking the kind of step forward that, look, Carolina wants to win a cup.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be willing to trade away a Marty Natchez who is looking as good as he's looking. He might be a guy where you just keep him through the end of his contract and then say, all right, well, we're trying to win championships, so we'll keep you. And if you sign somewhere else, then sorry, bye.
Yeah, they're the type of team
type situation.
They're the type of team that probably in 2 years, and we're talking 2 years from now, we have a number we think you're worth. Go out, find a deal, and if it's more than what we're willing to spend, Godspeed. But yeah, we're willing to keep you at a certain price, but it damn sure looks like he's a hell of a player. So maybe they dodged a bullet in not trading him this offseason. It's oh, yeah, we didn't lose nearly as much as we thought, coming into the year. Shane Gostisbehere's awesome. Sean Walker's awesome. And now keeping Marty Natchez turned out to be an awesome decision for them. So who the hell knows with Carolina? Maybe this is it for them. All right, Charlie, you got anything else for me?
No, I think we're good. We're up tomorrow for postgame, correct?
Yes, we have a pre and postgame tomorrow. Charlie will be coming to us live from, what the hell is it? The Amalie Arena still? I don't know.
Amalie Arena. Amalie. Actually, one of my favorite arenas in hockey, to be honest with you. Love Amalie Arena.
All right, coming up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, Charlie will be joining us in postgame. JP and I will have you for pre and post, so tune in then. Make sure you're following our YouTube channel. Never miss a live show. Hit that reminder bell so you get the notifications. And follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. That's where I do all my in-game tweeting. And you can find our schedule pinned at the top so you do never miss a live show. Last but not least, make sure you're following the podcast as well. Double dip for us. Sign up on all those possible platforms for podcasts. Just search PHLY Flyers. That's it for us. My name is Bill Matz. That is Charlie O'Connor. Until next time, let's go Flyers.